The moment I pushed open the community center door, a wave of heat hit me like a punch. It wasn't just hot. It was a suffocating, sticky nightmare, like being trapped in molten syrup. Sweat soaked my skin before I even stepped inside. Fresh from my air-conditioned pickup, this place was meant to be a cooling refuge from the relentless heat wave roasting our town. But instead, it felt like an oven. My eyes scanned the room and my stomach clenched. Old Mr. Carver sat slumped, in a plastic chair, his face ghostly pale, his usually tidy flannel drenched in sweat. Tiny Sophie, barely 7, fanned her grandma weakly with a battered magazine, worry etched deep in her small face. Across the room, Mrs. Hensley's raspy breathing sounded like a struggle with every inhale. And then I saw her, Mrs. Alvarez, the kindest soul in the neighborhood, clutching her chest, breathing shallow and labored. She was the one who always brought homemade tamales to every HOA meeting, even when they descended into shouting matches over mailbox colors. Seeing her like that, gasping for air, lit a fire in me. "What the hell is this?" I blurted louder than I intended. Tired faces turned toward me. "It's a damn sauna in here. Where's the AC? Did it break?" Mrs. Alvarez lifted her head, eyes filled with desperation. "Tom, honey," she wheezed. "Karen stopped by about an hour ago. Said something about unauthorized power use." She paused, gasping. "She unplugged it. Said the filter was a fire hazard." My mind froze. Unplugged it? Karen, the HOA president? She's not just a stickler. She's a walking disaster. A perfect threat to sanity, I snapped, heat rushing to my face, not just from the 90-degree room. These were my neighbors, roasting in their own homes because Karen decided that a filter was more dangerous than heat stroke. "Stay hydrated, folks," I muttered, storming out. "I'll be back." I had no plan, just rage. My first thought was to march to the breaker box, plug the unit back in, and dare her to unplug it again. But Karen probably chained the panel shut with a monogrammed padlock. I found her outside, naturally tending to her flawless, drought-resistant alias, looking as cool as a cucumber in her pristine sun hat and gloves. The irony burned. "Karen," I called, trying to keep my voice steady, though it had a sharp edge. She turned slowly, smiling smugly like she was humoring a tantrum-throwing child. "Tom, isn't it?" she said, dripping with condescension. "Lovely day if a touch warm." A throbbing pain hit my temple. "Karen, you unplugged the AC in the town's cooling center. It's a 105 degrees and you turned it into a sweat lodge. Are you out of your mind?" She set down her watering can with exaggerated patience. "Yes, Tom, I did. As HOA president, I enforce the bylaws. It's a clear violation of Regulation 9, Section B, Subsection 2, unauthorized utility use on communal property without board approval." She tapped her chin with a manicured nail. "And that filter was filthy. A fire hazard. We can't risk that, can we?" "A fire hazard?" I sputtered. "Mrs. Alvarez can barely breathe. She has asthma. Did that cross your mind?" Karen's smile tightened. "Perhaps Mrs. Alvarez should ensure her home is properly cooled and her health managed. The HOA isn't responsible for personal choices or for the town's failure to file. Utility request forms, duplicate copies submitted 30 days in advance, triplicate copies." I was losing it. "It's a cooling center, Karen. It's open because people can't afford to run AC or don't have it. We're in a record heat wave, Karen." Straightened, radiating superiority all 5 feet of her. "Rules are rules, Tom. They maintain order and fairness." She nodded curtly and turned back to her flowers. I stood shaking with fury at her callous power trip. This wasn't petty. It was dangerous. I stormed to my truck. The hot vinyl seat seared through my jeans as I slammed the door. Yelling hadn't helped, but Karen thrived on control. Last year, she'd hounded poor Mr. Jenkins over an unauthorized birdhouse, threatening fines. The year before, she'd patrolled recycling bins with a clipboard, issuing warnings for misplaced cardboard. But unplugging life-saving AC? That was supervillain territory. Then the idea sparked. Wild, reckless, gloriously defiant. If she wanted to play by her rule book, I'd find a loophole she couldn't touch. I run a small event logistics company handling festivals and corporate gigs. We deal with climate control. My fingers flew across my phone until I landed on Jake, my go-to guy for big jobs. This was crazy, probably overkill, and could land me in deep trouble. A sane person would call the town or fire department. But, picturing Mrs. Alvarez struggling and Karen's smirk, sanity took a back seat. "Jake, my man," I said when he answered, the roar of machinery in his shop behind him. "How's your stock of heavy-duty mobile cooling?" Jake laughed, booming. "Tom, you troublemaker. What's broken now? Cooling a wedding tent or a stadium?" I grinned. Think guerrilla mission against an HOA tyrant. Karen unplugged the community center's AC, leaving kids and seniors to roast. It's brutal. Jake paused, then whistled. An HOA Karen? That's cold-blooded. Say no more. I've got just the thing. Big Mabel. A 40-foot reefer trailer, dual zone, with her own diesel generator. She's beat up but can turn. That sent her into a freezer. My heart leapt. A 40-foot trailer, perfect, self-contained. Yep, outlets for extra fans too. Where are you? Elm Street off Main, Jake said. How soon can you get her here? For a cause like this? I'll have my guy Nate roll out in an hour, 2 tops. It'll cost you. Diesel's pricey and Mabel's thirsty. Send the invoice, I said, grinning like a maniac. And Jake, have Nate hit the horn when he arrives. Just a little flair. Jake laughed. You got it. This will be legendary. Hanging up, I felt a mix of glee and dread. This was nuts, but it was for Mrs. Alvarez, for everyone suffering. I drove back, parking down the street to strategize, grabbing water bottles from my trunk. Me, original Aaron, and I headed to the center. Neighbor Rick, a retired cop, was there looking grim as he pressed a damp cloth to Mr. Carver's head. Heard what Karen did? Rick growled. That's low. Any ideas? I asked, handing over water. I've got something cooking. It's wild. Rick's eyes lit up. Wild's good right now, Tom. While Rick passed out water, I checked a satellite map. The center's lawn was small, but the public street in front could fit a 40-foot trailer. It would block Karen's prized lilies from the sun. Poetic justice. Mabel had outlets, and I had industrial AC units in storage. This could work. Insane. But it could work. Every distant rumble made me jump. Karen's curtains twitched. Good. Then came a deep growl and a horn blast that shook the street. Dogs barked, heads turned, and around the corner rolled a massive semi-hauling Big Mabel, a scuffed white beast gleaming like a battleship. Nate, a burly guy with a trucker cap and grin, backed her in with surgical precision, eclipsing Karen's flowers. Karen's face appeared in her window, jaw dropping. It was better than I dreamed. Jake said, You needed to cool a party. Nate chuckled, hopping down. Where's the cold air going, boss? Straight into the center, I said, grinning. We're making it winter in July. Nate and his co-driver unhitched the cab, parked it, and fired up Mabel's generator with a satisfying hum. Rick and I hauled my AC units inside, propping the doors open. Nate handed me thick orange cables. Plug these into Mabel. She's got juice. We hooked it up, flipped the switches, and a blast of icy air roared in, smelling of diesel and triumph. Within minutes, the heat retreated. Mr. Carver smiled. Sophie giggled. Mrs. Alvarez's breathing eased. Then Karen stormed over, face red, eyes blazing. Tom! She shrieked. What is this monstrosity? I turned, smiling serenely. Karen, meet Big Mabel, our emergency cooling solution, since you decommissioned the center's AC over your bylaw obsession and that hazardous filter. We're stepping in. Her voice hit a new pitch. This is illegal. A commercial vehicle in a residential area. It's loud. It's hideous. Actually, I said calmly, legally parked on a public street within noise limits per Ordinance 42C, quieter than your Saturday leaf blower, I bet. And it's saving people from heat stroke. Humanitarian, really. Neighbors snickered. Nate stifled a laugh. Karen was apoplectic. I'm calling the police, the mayor, the HOA. This will be towed. Go ahead, I said, winking. Tell them Tom says bring a parka. It's chilly inside. She stomped off, phone glued to her ear, dialing furiously. 10 minutes later, a cruiser pulled up, no lights. Officers Bennett and Carter stepped out. Bennett, a grizzled vet, Carter younger but sharp. Karen latched onto Bennett, ranting about violations and aesthetics. Bennett, unfazed, eyed Mabel, the cool air pouring out, and me trying to look innocent. "Afternoon," he said. "Ma'am, what's the issue, besides it being big?" Karen unleashed her tirade. Bylaws, ordinances, property values. I stepped in. "Officer, I'm Tom Collins. This is a rental from Jake's Cool Solutions, legally parked, powering AC units for the town's cooling center. Karen unplugged the main unit over a bylaw and a flammable filter, leaving folks like Mrs. Alvarez in danger." Karen squawked about unauthorized use and fire risk. Bennett walked to the door, feeling the cool air. A faint smile flickered. "Feels nice in there." To Karen, "The town opened this as a cooling center?" "Yes," she hissed, "but they didn't file Form 29D or an environmental statement." Bennett sighed, rubbing his temples. "Sir, if it's legal, not too loud, and helping in a heat emergency, I don't see a police issue. Ma'am, this is an HOA or town matter." Carter, hiding a grin, added, "Ugliness isn't a crime, ma'am, nor is future property value loss." Karen gaped, speechless. The officers nodded and drove off, leaving her fuming in Mabel's shadow. Jake arrived later, grinning. "Heard. You handled that Karen like a pro," he said, clapping my back. "Never seen one crash and burn so fast." The center became an oasis. Neighbors relaxed, kids played. Mrs. Alvarez patted my arm, whispering, "You're a saint, Tom." Outside, folks set up chairs, not for shade, but to watch Karen pace her porch, phone glued to her ear, doors slamming as her HOA allies ignored her. Even board members drove by, saw Mabel, and left without stopping. Karen's reign was cracking. That evening, sipping a beer on my porch, I watched Mabel hum. I'd feared cuffs for disturbing the peace with a semi, but Bennett understood. Sometimes, humanity trumps rules. Mabel stayed 3 days, a glorious icebox. The town manager called, amused yet impressed, promising a new AC and better protocols. Karen's all-caps HOA newsletter ranted about atmospheric vandalism,